Setup. Welcome to OpenClaw in Enterprise and Startups. We're the MAIRA team. I'm Andrew McGrath. I'm also here with me is my co-founder George Humphreys, who will have to join me on the mic over on this side of things as we get rolling. But we are here and actually about to get started. It looks like we still have a few people with us despite our hiccups, so let's get into it. So there's obviously going to be quite a few questions. What is OpenClaw? How does it relate to an actual enterprise setting? And what are we going to be covering today? So I'm going to pull up our agenda here. Right now we're playing this off of a video, so just give us 1 second. So yeah, you're good to go. We have what is OpenClaw. We're also going to be going over what the major unlock was, what are persistent agents, kind of what are AI harnesses. I'm sure some of these are buzzwords that you've seen on your LinkedIn feed or elsewhere, but now we're actually going to be diving into it, and then why it's relevant, the business cases, a quick demonstration and technical deep dive with our CTO, which is going to be a great value. This is way deeper content than the standard like YouTube tutorial or anything like that. This is straight from the source of someone who's building with this tech all day, every day. And then time for questions. We'll have questions being monitored throughout. So if you want to put them in the chat, I will be looking at them. Our CTO and other team members will be looking at them as well. And we will have everything up and ready to go. I do just want to confirm real quick that we can see the media on the stream. Okay, fantastic. Again, I'm not the CTO. And honestly, OBS Studio is a nightmare, so even, there's no saving that. But let's get right into it here. So OpenClaw itself, it is a lobster pun to start with. So there's going to be some lobster references throughout, and what it is at its core, it is a AI harness. And a harness is a fancy way of saying it's a bunch of things that live on top of an AI model. And why this is important, why this is relevant to this time right now, is we just saw not one, but actually in the last week or so, there's now been a second one. There's 2 one-man unicorns out there. And a unicorn is a classification of a startup or a company of being at $1 billion valuation. So these are not small economic, these are not small businesses, these are not mom and pops. This is $1 billion valuation, and these companies, for the first time in history, is now, it's being able to be done by one man. And the unlock that not only the OpenClaw founder used himself while developing the platform, but now a health, like a med tech company, it has used to create a massive amount of value, a massive amount of influence and leverage while using these AI harnesses. And this is ushering in a new era or a new age of AI relevance where AI is no longer a buzzword. It's not just something that lives in a tool that serves as a chatbot. And it's not something that you just ask for recipes or to write your social media posts. It is a powerful technology that, when used on an operational level or a foundational level within an operation, is a major unlock, and is an unlock that is creating outsized results that up until a few months ago were considered quite literally impossible. I mean, a one-man company being able to reach $1 billion valuation historically just does not happen. And why this matters for us is we can get the same amount of leverage as owners and operators as these mega companies can with using the exact same tools that they're using. So actually, for the first time ever, there is no budget constraint or tech constraint difference between you, me, and the other guy. Everyone is using, who's deep in this AI space, everyone's using Claude Opus 4.6, extended thinking. It's a very powerful model. And we're going to dive even deeper into this with our CTO here. But at high level, Claude Opus 4.6 is what everyone's using. Your competitor's using it. But that's not the main unlock. The main unlock is figuring out how to use that as a intelligence layer, and then getting your organization, company, or ideas, your layer in there. So we did this, and we were able to actually take our startup from some decent results to a massive lead pipeline just using this to augment our internal operations. And when it comes to go to market, I am leading go to market with the help of just a few people. So to be able to generate that amount of deal flow across functionally a 2-person team is just absolutely incredible. And there's a huge unlock here that everyone has, which is Opus 4.6. So if you're not using that, like, just go switch to Anthropic from OpenAI if you haven't already. Not a sponsorship, but like, just for real, there's a big unlock available there alone. But getting your org's data, getting your context, getting real-time information, and getting all of that into an AI model and doing it in a way that that data isn't stale, it's all happening in real time, that's the real unlock that happened very recently, and that's what we're actually diving into. So kind of the analogy that I talk about is, if we imagine a pack of sled dogs, like, there's a bunch of AI tools out there, and those are kind of your huskies or your sled dogs. The actual harness of OpenClaw or the MAIRA platform, or this tech in general, is kind of your sled, and then you as the operator stand at the command of all of this. So that's kind of how I think about what the actual harness is and how all of that fits together. So we touched briefly on what OpenClaw is, and we'll go even deeper in a second, but where OpenClaw meets a lot of limitations, where this tech runs into limitations and problems, is when we start looking at it in a business sense or an enterprise framing, when we're looking at compliance and feasibility and technical know-how and hardware hosting and all these other variables that come up when people start talking about OpenClaw and all these other, AI platforms out there that are deeper than the baseline. So with OpenClaw, right now you need to host it on hardware, whether that be a Mac Mini or otherwise, and there's a lot of hardening and tunneling and a bunch of basically cybersecurity setup that goes into it, which, if you're not running an internal IT department, can be a little bit of a heavy lift. So what we identified is, well, we're running this internally for us, and we set it up through virtual machines and can all be hosted, and it's all copacetic in that regard. I started talking to a couple friends of mine who are owner operators in the space, mostly real estate sectors, but other sectors as well, private equity, auto dealers, etc. And the feedback was pretty much universal. Hey, we want to get our hands on this. We want OpenClaw, and we'll do anything to be able to get this into our org, because if it can have even half the unlock that you're saying it does, it's worth at least trying. So what we identified is, well, there's enterprise, which is one size, and then there's startups and small business. So our company, we help these different types of organizations integrate with the OpenClaw platform. So whether it's enterprise, which is 10 to 500 and above for amount of users and amount of AI agents that will be deployed, versus startups, small business, and individuals who just want to deploy this on a single agent scale or get their feet wet. There are flexible options, and it's basically, do you want to do enterprise AI and have a AI central nervous system on a large scale in your org, or are you running a small business, personal one-man show, what have you, and you want to run it on a small scale? Both of those are options for what deployments in this new space look like. So now we're going to be diving in much deeper on what the actual OpenClaw is, everything, and we're going to be having our CTO join us and take it away for the meat and potatoes section of the actual presentation here. So we'll have him hop on the mic here and walk through the slides, and then just real quick, as you're going through, I just
click and pause because it's running out of it's running off of a video. If that makes sense. You'll be good to go. So yeah, you're live.
I see. Hey everyone, I'm George Humphreys. I'm the CTO over at Realm Realty, also doing business as MAIRA, and this is going to get kind of technical, so bear with me. I'll try to move slow enough to get through everything, but also quick enough not to put everyone to sleep. It can be kind of soporific, but in general, this is what OpenClaw is. Like Andrew mentioned quite aptly in his analogy, it is a bit like a literal harness. It's a way of wrangling these somewhat hallucinatory AI models into having repeatable and trusted outputs for a business org. It also allows them to be persistent, so they maintain memory, which is really ideal if you're a coworker. You don't want someone forgetting every single preference that you have. In addition, they're able to pull in all sorts of business tools that allow for these really cool workflows to appear. In our org, for example, anytime we're taking a meeting with somebody, we have a recorder, a transcriber in that meeting, which automatically then emails the transcript to one of us. We then have one of our AI agents monitoring our email. It pulls it in automatically, goes through it, and pulls out all the pertinent details, going through our CRM of choice and updating it in accordance with whatever it found in the transcript. This has been an amazing unlock, so we don't spend more time than we need to in our CRM. No one really enjoys that. We can just simply click play on the meeting and close it out, have a conversation with ourselves, amongst ourselves, and wait for our agent to update everything across our CRM. In this case, OpenClaw is the back end of that. So if you're looking at this visual, there are all these different aspects of OpenClaw. I'm not going to go into every piece in detail, but you're welcome to take a screenshot and just delve deeper into each aspect. But essentially, there are a handful of different files that give them personality, that allow them to have their memory. It tells them what tools that they're allowed to use. We then hook them into a bunch of different services across the internet. We allow them to have different channels of communication. In this case, we use Telegram internally, but plenty of people use WhatsApp or their Slack channels, and sometimes we're even adding text messaging, which is super intuitive. They also have heartbeats, so they will continuously run checks across your organization or across whatever they've been plugged into. We have ours set to every 30 minutes or so, but these are called cron jobs. They're chronological jobs. They're set to a time period, and they run whatever it is that you want to run. For example, I have one running right now that I enjoy that sends me a morning update on the state of the industry, the AI industry. It finds any new cool posts that have come out across X or LinkedIn and summarizes them for me into a nice article that I can read in the morning. That's been really, really nice. That's about the gist of it. There's some stuff about inter-agent communication, but I can get into that in the next slides. So let's just move on to how we are actually improving this harness. So adding bits and bobs that we found need improving. That needs a little swapping out. This is a lot to look at, but if I can direct your attention to the factory service, which is that middle section there, that's where the real meat and potatoes are. The stuff at the top is the clients. That's just like, what interface do you interact with your AI with? In most cases, people are using it through text and call. It seems to be really intuitive. Of course, sometimes you need like a more powerful dashboard. We've made a few of those as well, but those are the ones that seem to be the most useful, and actually what we use the most internally. What we've come to add are a bunch of additional either guardrails or improvements to memory or improvements to tool creation and calling across the entire OpenClaw system. So every little detail that we found could be improved, we have improved. And in addition to that, we've also hosted it on a virtual machine because we originally bought a Mac Mini, and it turns out every time we unplug that Mac Mini, we get a flurry of texts from our first users saying, "Wait, what the heck? Where did our robots go? I need them desperately." And so we are now putting them on virtual machines, which they're called Sprites, and these are ephemeral machines. These are machines that turn on and turn off as they're used, but they're always available to you, so you never will have that problem of, oh, my agent's unplugged. They're consistent, and more importantly, we're trying to make it so there's a one-click install. You say, I want to have OpenClaw agents in my org. Great. Click one button, we spin them up for you, you start, that's it. There's no requirements to lock down your computer or make sure you understand how porting works or networking works. It's like you don't need to get that detailed. We're trying to abstract this all into business ops language and make it super digestible. I know that this slide is far from that, but hopefully you've been listening to what I'm saying instead. So part of the way that we're making this more digestible and approachable to business operators and owners is by having this Pathfinder program that we run on the onset. What we do is basically pair individual AI agents with the members of your org, whoever wants to be involved. And these agents are specialized in learning a bit about you and your preferences and your workflows. And so they self-mold, self-modify them, not in a sycophantic way, but in a practical, business-focused way to understand exactly how your org works. Where are the leaks in the boat? What doesn't work for you in your day-to-day flow? Where are the time sinks? Like, for me, it quickly identified that I'm spending a ton of time dragging between different specs that we have. Like, I don't have enough cohesion along task order. So it was like, okay, well, you need to improve your essentially your my Kanban board, my task order. So I did, and it has been an unlock. It's made my life so much easier, and it helps manage it for me too. So in short here, what this Pathfinder program does is it has a few days where this agent helps to observe your workflows. It's either starting from completely blind. Sometimes if we know a little bit about your role and position, we can give it some context. And even better, if you do like a 10 to 20 minute conversation over the phone with it, it can get a lot of useful information about how to do its job better and help assist you in the best way possible. From there, it kind of builds itself out. It figures out exactly which agents you might benefit from, which specialist agents you might benefit from. And it creates this report, essentially. It aggregates everything. It says, hey, where are all the problems? And it gives you this, essentially like a McKinsey consulting level report. And we can say that because it really is that extensive. It's in-depth, it tells you where the problems are, and you can decide whether or not you want to address them or add an agent to address them or what have you. And of course, we go through a progressive access tier in the bottom right. In the early days, it's not going to touch any of your org. It's not going to do any reads. It's only going to read stuff. It will not write anything. And then we will slowly start giving it more power as you and it form a little bit of trust. We're not expecting you to hand over your control right away. It's not an overnight thing. How those agents actually self-improve, and I'll speed this up a little bit because I'm actually putting myself to sleep. But what a big unlock for us internally has been, how do we make these things self-improve, where I don't have to be sitting at the computer telling them how to improve day in and day out. So it saved me a lot of time, which is great. But now we do have this recursive circle where it tries to execute a skill. For example, sending me my morning report, telling me what's going on in the industry. It tweaks it slightly as it sees how well it's done. based on some evaluation criteria. In my case, I tell it like, I'm not really that interested in what's going on in, the accounting industry as much as I might be interested in what's going on in real estate and prop tech. So can we like adjust the ratios of different information, please? It kind of takes that back in, it digests, it modifies its skills, it then comes back and tries it again, and it goes on from there. If it improves, great. If it doesn't, it goes and continues to try. Okay, let's move on to some of the other stuff. This is a killer piece of the puzzle. This is tool integration. So, as you might have found, many agents are really, really good and getting even better, but the kicker is that they don't seem to work across all your different tools. Of course, there are services coming out that allow this. People have been doing different things with Zaps, with Zapier. People are trying to automate stuff with N8N. It kind of requires you to go in and build it yourself, though. It's a real pain in the neck. Luckily enough, there are some standards that are surfacing now. We now have Composio, which is a service, which is kind of like the super integrator. We call it the Omni Integrator. It has 850 plus apps that you can integrate with perfectly, and it works with OpenClaw amazingly. We added it in, of course, but as a fallback, you also have all these things called MCP servers. These are the new hot thing. They allow for almost any company that has an API to make it LLM, make it AI friendly, right? So where in the past you would have had to have some technical person come in and try to figure out how to use the APIs for your company in the best way possible. Now you can just tell your agent, hey, I really need data from the MLS or what have you. And it will try to find you an MCP server that does so, that pulls that data in, can use it in your day-to-day interactions with your AI. That's been huge. And then last but not least, it's the most token intensive, so we try to avoid it, but your AI can actually just go and control a browser, and it can navigate to any site on the internet, wherever you need to go. This is a little bit more concerning from a risk standpoint, right? On the far right of this document, or of this slide, you can see these risk classifications based off of which type of tool integration we're doing. Browsers can have some naughtiness on them. You never really know what someone's hosting at their website, so we've built in all of these additional guardrails to avoid having your AI be compromised, but it's the last and the least used version in case you really just need to get some information off the web and don't feel like finding an alternative. That's the gist of that. Let's move on to kind of the most important thing here, which is memory and knowledge. How do these things stay persistent? A lot of the time we found that other AI, including ChatGPT and even Claude code, seem to degrade over time. Their memory, while it in the beginning seems to be really impressive, after you've spent maybe a month with them, it starts to continually to surface stale information. So stuff that you were really focused on, 2 weeks ago, and you thought was the direction you were supposed to go in, but then quickly realized, perhaps that's not nearly as much of a priority. It seems to have a hard time letting go. It's a little bit needy, a lot of these models, it seems, in their memory. So what we did is go and find the cutting edge research on memory and ways to consolidate it and ways to clean it in the background. Like, how do you go and clean up connections that are dead, snip them? How do you improve connections between things that are needed? What we found was, ironically, similar to how humans do it, and is pertinently named dreaming. So we have models go over all of your memory files, all these agents' memory files, when you're asleep in the middle of the night, and it does work to try to clean up the BS, the stuff that's no longer important, things that it might have semi-hallucinated. It also tries to pick out details it might have missed the first time through, which has been a problem we've had too. Your agent has to infer based off your prompts what's important. It doesn't always get it right the first time, but we found it gets it right the third time for sure. So we just give it more opportunities to get it right. In this way that we've introduced a couple additional services on top of what normal OpenClaw is. This is where this gets really robust, and we kind of get into like where's the value add from MAIRA. This is a big part of it. This allows memory inter-team. So if you're a bigger org and you want to stay across multiple different teams that are deploying their own OpenClaw instances, you really want to make sure that you're up to speed and you're up to date on what's going on in each of those, and that your agents as an executive or business owner are communicating correctly with those sub-team agents. Lastly, I'd like to mention that we have a few different modes that you can set up for how autonomous your AI are. So we typically ratchet it up slowly. So like level 0 is completely supervised. Your agents are not self-improving. They're not looking in at where it's done well in the past and where it's done poorly and trying to improve. It's just standard. It stays as is. It's static. And then we move up in autonomy until at some point the highest level is inter-fleet learning. So if you're an org owner, and say for example we're working with a company that's doing sales, that's doing payment card sales, and if one of their sales agents is having a stellar performance and some workflows that are working really, really well with their agent, it would be useful to share that amongst the other salespeople. They've been trying to do so through team meetings, but have found them to be grossly ineffective. In this case, you can actually go pinpoint where the sales processes differ amongst these different employees and figure out how you can tweak the other employees' agents to help them also have noticeable improvements to their closing, to their whatever success metric you're looking for. That's what we're really moving towards, is like these self-improving agent fleets. But for the meantime, just starting with one and learning how it works with you and working alongside it was what we recommend. But this is all coming really fast, and I know I threw a ton at you, so feel free to reach out and we can send you any sort of slides from this deck or give you some corroborating documents, or I can just have a chat with you about what all this means. But yeah, with that, I think that's my time, and I'm going to hand it back to Andrew. So thanks for listening.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, George. That was incredibly insightful. And it should be no surprise that reverse engineering a brain of a perfect employee into a code base and then orchestrating it through AI models is no small task. So it has proven to be quite the infrastructure challenge for us as a technical team, figuring out where does AI fit into this, where does AI actually make the most difference in an org. And there's 88% of orgs are using AI, 10% are making money from it. So we started from the human side of things of how do we optimize how easy it is to interact with cutting edge AI models? How do we make sure that when you are interacting with those models, the data is playing nice with an existing organization's tool ecosystem? And then when that data is playing nice, what does that data actually do? How do you turn it into strategy? How do you turn strategy into action? So that's the main fundamentals of what we've been working on, really from like a first principles basis, and then turning the OpenClaw harness into something that is truly enterprise viable, which has been a labor of love to say the least. But there is about a 5-minute delay between starting of me talking and what actually shows up on the screen because of basically because of it being a live stream, quote unquote live stream. So I'm going to start the Q&A now, and then I'm going to begin a story about how we use it internally, and by the time I finish that story, the questions should show up in the chat. So as we're doing the Q&A, just feel free on LinkedIn in the chat where we've been putting some of those correspondence. Feel free to ask questions there. I will answer them, either myself or our lovely CTO, depending on the nature of the question, whether it be business or technical, and we'll get those questions answered for you. But what the story I want to talk about is how we started using OpenClaw internally and what our pathfinding process looked like for us. So we launched our first AI agent, and originally its name was just Pathfinder, but it felt kind of weird, so we gave it a more human name of Dawn. And Dawn is our first AI agent, and both George and I actually use Dawn as kind of our executive digital twin. It's kind of the amorphous CTO, CEO, executive hybrid. And it is plugged into both of our entire knowledge bases and everything, and from there it was able to actually build out the rest of the agents. But I'm seeing the first questions come in now, so I'm going to start answering those. We have one from Ken Hoppy. What, if any, challenges did you encounter setting up OpenClaw? Well, I think George can speak to this. I think it was kind of a pain, if I remember it correctly, but I'll have him field this one.
Yeah. You know, it's markedly better now. It just sure helps getting a cash injection from OpenAI to the tune of $1 billion or so. So there's a lot more focus on making sure that it's up to snuff. But it sure had its like growing pains. I think for us, we had some frustration with just how quickly it can go off the rails if you don't add some. It really is designed to be managed by someone that's semi-technical. You know, that's what the group initially was that was put together by its founder. It was called the Claude group, or I think they've changed that name to Agents Anonymous now with the change to OpenAI. But they would meet together, and they were all pretty technical, and they were like, how do we make our own personalized agents? And he even talks about how he basically turns it on in YOLO mode, and YOLO mode is when it has full access to any commands across your computer and anything on the internet. And this is really fun if you don't care about what's on that computer. You don't have any sort of secret keys or passwords or stuff you've been logged into, like maybe your bank account or anything like that. In which case it is a terrible idea. So we bought a clean machine to run our own, and we did, and it didn't do anything terribly catastrophic, but I was very quick to first shut down most of its capabilities and then slowly reintroduce them. So it is a little bit like interacting with a toddler and slowly giving them sharper and sharper sticks and making sure that they don't poke anybody too hard, you know.
But it would be safe to say that if you're not technical, it would be maybe even potentially dangerous for someone in order to attempt, or is that those days over?
No, I mean, it's definitely still, I don't recommend it. If you have an IT guy, then yeah. For another example is that there are actively bad actors out there trying to take advantage of inexperienced OpenClaw users. Something like half of all of the community created skills that these agents can pull from were found to have malicious backdoors in them. So I don't mean to scare anybody, but there are some crappy people out there that are trying to take advantage of those that don't know how to set these up. So there is something to be said about being careful and potentially using something with some guardrails or putting them in yourself. And OpenClaw doesn't have the best, but they're adding a lot more. The last few, all the updates in April seem to have been focused largely on improving the reliability of tools and the defensibility of your machine. But we still have a little bit of a ways to go. Hope that answered that. Oh yeah, here's
Perfect. Yeah. If there's any other technical ones, why don't you just take those away while you're on stage?
Yeah, I mean, so I see Dean. Hey, Dean. What is the most basic stack to set up OpenClaw? I'd say, just go get OpenClaw itself from the GitHub repository. Pull that in, and then there's, if you in your terminal, if you go through the kind of onboarding process there and follow, I believe the README that's on OpenClaw's repo. It should tell you the basics of how to go and set it up. They do a lot of hand-holding on the onboarding. I would recommend setting it up with, WhatsApp. It's easier than texting. Set it up with WhatsApp. I highly recommend using, for a model, the Opus 4.6 from Anthropic. It's just above and beyond better than the others. I have not found a comparable one. A comparable one that's cheaper is Minimax M2.5. It's a comparable one. I mean, alternatively, you can go sign up with our version of this, which is a one-click option, and it sets up OpenClaw on virtual machine for you, and you can pick exactly what channel you want to interact with, whether it's just email or text and call, and any of these other things. You can go to lobstermaker.com. It's on the screen right now, and sign up there on our wait list. And we're just going to approve about 100 people to start, because again, I want to make sure that we have our security blankets all battened down, and that nobody's going to like I want people to try to break it, basically, is what I'm saying. So, back to Ken. How does Pathfinder know what agents to create? Brilliant. Yeah, so we use this system that its main goal, Pathfinder's main goal, is kind of like one of its skills, is to go find where there seems to be slowdowns in a flow. So it creates these evaluation criteria, right? After spending a couple days with somebody, that say, okay, seemingly from interacting with this person, they probably have this role. They seem to be focused on getting these things done, at least when they're interacting with me. Like, maybe it's cleaning up your email. Maybe it's something like more substantial, like, can you generate some leads for me in this industry? Once it's defined those evaluation criteria, it can then go try and iterate on its skills. It tries to get better at doing actions for you. So next time you do ask it, hey, can you go generate me a lead report, or like some leads, it should do so better than before. It should, and then any feedback you give to it from those interactions will inform it even more so. But how does it pick exactly what specialists to create? Once it's kind of exhausted its ability to do a certain role, say for example, its evaluation criteria, it's not meeting it. It's not getting to a percentage of meeting it that it's satisfactory. Over 90% is what we're looking for, right? Ideally 95%. Then it would think about spinning up an independent agent specialist. If you're using it enough, if it can justify that use of resources, then it will suggest, hey, you should actually make this its own specialist that's just dedicated to lead outreach and generation. Otherwise, it can manage it itself. One singular agent can handle, about 100 different skills pretty effectively. At least that's from what we've found. We've had like a really high success rate with our main agent, Don, having access to well over 100 skills. And actually being able to go pull from a registry of over 1,000 skills. So you really could run this whole thing with maybe one agent. You pull in a specialist when you would imagine hiring an individual for that role. That's what I would recommend. All right, Ken, that's a good question. Thank you for that one. Well, those are the main questions that I've seen. Andrew, I don't know if you have.
Well, I guess while they have you, is there anything that you would say from the creator of Lobster Maker, what, like realistically, like no sales, what is the pro versus con of going in and doing it yourself versus Lobster Maker versus if you're at enterprise scale, what does that look like too? Like from a technical standpoint, we talk from a business side, but would love to get your feedback from the guy who built it.
Well, I'm a little bit biased on this, I'll say, right? Because I think that everyone should go learn this stuff to whatever extent that you're comfortable or interested in learning it. It's really cool when you get into the nuts and bolts. It's moving very, very quickly, and things are getting just easier and better, and it's becoming easier to learn this on the fly. Like, you can almost just ask, right? You actually can just ask, hey, how do I interact with you best? And these things are very shortly going to be all self-improving, from how I described it. So, I guess I wouldn't recommend, going back to square one, because we've moved well past square one. Like, we're
right. Why would you go back to like the basic harness when the first, second gen harnesses are here?
I mean, you can use them to build out your own harnesses, is what my thought process is. I think every org will have someone that is semi-technical, kind of replacing their traditional IT professional who's managing, several disparate technologies, trying to make them all talk to each other. It's a full-time job. It sometimes requires a full department of people. And you're going to probably have maybe one person dedicated to that, managing a fleet of AI agents. And like, their job is basically to make sure that the agents are all up and healthy, nothing's going off the rails, nothing's acting weird. But it's kind of the equivalent of a tech HR person, I guess. So, good to have somebody in the org that can do that. But going back to your question, I would recommend jumping in now where the technology is with something that's a little bit more forgiving, like something like lobstermaker.com or one of the other service providers out there, and then learn it on the side. There's no point in slowing down your business to learn this stuff at the expense of your business.
Well, I think that's the standpoint that I came from, because I've started as technical enough to understand why this stuff is cool, but maybe not technical enough to actually go confidently deploy it. Maybe deploy it, but not confident in a way that I would be confident that it's not going to put something at risk. So from my standpoint as an entrepreneur trying to move fast in an industry that is moving incredibly fast, historically fast, my take has always been, let's find the best solution that offers the most coverage for cheap and run with it. So from a decision-making standpoint, and again, of course, I would be biased, but from a decision-making standpoint of how to run with AI, there's two things. One, find the one that isn't going to keep you in pilot purgatory. So find AI tools, whether it be Lobster Maker or otherwise, and there's other stuff out there, but find AI tools for your org that have good coverage across multiple workflows or departments. Workflow specialized AI, like a CRM that has AI in it, it doesn't really do the job that it claims that it's supposed to. And that's what people are finding right now. Like 2025, a lot of money got spent on AI pilots. 2026, a lot less money is going to get spent on pilots, and a lot more money is going to get spent on infrastructure redesign to make sure orgs actually have the piping for AI.
Can I chime in there? I like what you're saying there on the CRM agent side. I was thinking about this recently. All of these really big incumbent legacy software providers are throwing AI into their products, and they're saying, great, we've solved AI. The problem that I've noticed is, okay, you solved AI within your software, but I really need an agent that's cross-software, all of my software. And it understands each individually and is able to operate them individually, but is beholden to me, and it carries around that context with me and is trying to improve my bottom line, not all these other companies. Excuse my language.
No worries. Well, to put a cherry on top, really, why this matters, why harnesses are powerful, why building on top of OpenClaw gives your business an insane unlock, is that you have all of this data in your organization. You know, as an owner, operator, executive, entrepreneur, what have you, you know what's working. You have some intuition around what needs to be fixed and what doesn't. And now you can actually add a fine-tooth data comb to those hunches and analyze in your organization the data in a way that has never before been surfaced or digestible. And now you can pull all that in, make decisions on it, and with Anthropic, they're actually using this same method to build their next iteration of AI models. So now we have the smartest AI models in the world building themselves, and everything's going parabolic. I don't say this to scare you, but if you take advantage of understanding what a harness is now, not only are you 6 months ahead of the pack, but you actually have the ability to use the most powerful unlock in AI right now to build the solution that your business needs. And whether that's alongside us with Lobster Factory or MAIRA or independently, we want to be a part of that conversation, and we want to talk to builders in the space who are integrating with AI. So if you're on this call, you have my LinkedIn. Please don't be a stranger. And we will definitely be in touch. There is a second one of these that is going to be happening. It says on the slide May. I think we're going to see what we can do about getting it in before that. But this has been the MAIRA team. Thank you all so much for tuning in with us today. And this will be available. If you want the slides, if you want us to talk to anyone on your team, if you want us to present to your company as well, let us know and we will be available and more than happy to make those connections.
Bye-bye.